What's up, fight fans from all around the world? Thank you for tuning in to another edition of the War Room. I am your fight goddess, Chris Baldwin, and I'm here with Melissa Smith. She is a women's boxing historian, and my boy, Mr. Eddie Goldman. He is an award-winning sports editor. And you guys, it's been a fantastic week. Welcome back into the War Room. We got a lot to talk about because, Melissa, you went all the way to Vegas. I should have come to Vegas to meet you, but you left New York. You came all the way to Vegas for the International Women's Boxing Hall of Fame. I need you to give us a rundown on what happened in that show.
Well, it was a fantastic event. It was the 10th anniversary. Our first event was in July of 2014. This was our 10th edition. We recognized, we did inductions for 2023 and 2024. We did it over a two-day event on October 6th and October 7th. October 6th was sort of meet and greet, and it was our opportunity to really recognize pioneer boxers and amateurs. And in particular, we recognized a woman named Jamie Johnson, who was an amateur boxer in England in the 1980s and early 90s, who boxed in all the illegal fights in the underground fight cars.
She was on Smokers
all over the UK. She was in the Smokers. It fought all sorts of great people. She fought Deirdre Gargany. She fought Jane Couch. I mean, she was totally in there. So it was really great to recognize her. And it was just a great opportunity for everybody to meet and greet and just hug each other, hug it all out.
Right.
And then on October 7th, which the Mayor Carolyn Goodwin of the mayor of Las Vegas declared Women's Boxing Day, which was very awesome. We had our actual induction event. I gotta say, New York City was in the house. We recognized Bruce Silverglade from Gleason's Gym. We recognized Sonia Lamonicus, who was just a fantastic heavyweight fighter. And we recognized Jill Diamond from WBC Cares. So we just had a terrific event. We had fighters from all over the world who were able to attend. And our opening little video was actually wonderful because it was Barbara Buttrick talking to us. She has now moved back to a hole in the UK. She's 92. And then we also had Amanda Serrano, who was undisputed at feather and just also greeted us. So we had these two women kind of at different ends of the spectrum of what the sport is all about, who were able to sort of greet everyone who was there. It was just a love fest, a really beautiful night of love and a sisterhood. There's a lot of Boxing Hall of Fames. There's one, seems to be one every weekend practically in every state now. And of course, there's the International Boxing Hall of Fame, which we commend for starting to recognize women in 2020, and they've now had 3 classes. But there is something so special about the Women's Boxing Hall of Fame because there was a time we were the only people that recognized ourselves.
That's right.
And there's a sisterhood of boxing that just permeates the space. And what was beautiful is we have young amateur girls who show up. We have established fighters. We have people in the promotional ring. And because we're doing it in Las Vegas, that people just show up. So it really was a delightful evening of joy and recognition of people who go unsung. And that's just the truth of it. I don't care how many elite women there are. The fact is, most women in boxing, you never heard of them.
That's right. I love that. I love that we're celebrating each other. And when I go to different women's events, it is empowering because all of the women are, it's just a lift me up kind of event. And I love that. Now, Amanda Serrano, we need to get her on the show because
we do, because she's doing 12-3.
Yeah, we need
in
to
2
get
weeks
her on the show.
October 27th. Yeah, she's really special. She's lifting up the sport because she's now said, okay, I'm on the other side. I've done undisputed. I've got all these different weight titles. I've got most valuable promotions behind me. Believe it or not, Jake Paul, as crazy as he is on his own boxing,
exactly.
They are behind her 100%. And she now has that FU money. And she has that, I'm doing what I want to do. And she came up with a brilliant thing. She's like, our choice.
Right.
for 12-3. It's
Yep.
our choice. If
Right.
you choose to fight 10-2, power to you. Our choice at 12-3. And I got to tell you, you know, she's got 3 of the sanctioning bodies behind her, and you got WCBC going humana, humana, humana on the 10-2. So we'll see how all of this is going to go out. But she's really thrown a gauntlet out there on on what I'm calling the sisterhood of the sport. And that really is what the promise of women's boxing is all about, is women lifting each other up.
She's wearing that shirt.
Gives a goddamn.
Right. She's wearing that shirt. Women empower women. And I love that.
Women empower women.
Women. And then
absolutely.
Or empowered, it's empowered women empower women. I love that whole saying. But now she's hired Heather Hardy, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
She's taken, you know, I saw literally Heather in the gym today, and I embraced her because I hadn't seen her since her, you know, in a bit. And she was saying to me, you know, when they started out, they were like a little bit in, you know, like this with each other, because they were coming up at the same time. Amanda had been in there first, and then they were always kind of lifting each other up little bits. And now it's like, I'm with you, sister. I got you. And because, you know, as helpful as a person like Lou DiBella has been to the sport, and by the way, we recognize him, we inducted him in 2024 to say, hey, Lou was there, but it's different. It's different than when your sister lifts you up, because she knows what you went through and what you're still going through. And the promoter's not going to give a goddamn if you get money or not, but your sister will. So that's kind of where we are in the sport.
I love that.
And I just want to add something on the 12 3-minute rounds and the sanctioning bodies. That decision of the length of the fight is not up to the sanctioning bodies. It's up to the governing bodies, which would be in the US, the athletic commissions, or in the UK, the British Boxing Board of Control, and others there. You have to, in other words, if the WBC doesn't want to do it, and the promoters and the fighters want to do it, and the commission says, go ahead, you're going to be able to go ahead and do it. And I think that one of the strongest arguments is that these same commissions, and we've mentioned this before, regulate MMA. And in MMA, the women's fights are the same length as the men's fights. The non-title fights are 3 5-minute rounds, and the title fights are 5 5-minute rounds. Why in boxing then do you have 10 2-minute rounds in a title fight for women's boxing and 12 3-minute rounds for men? It's illogical, and it makes no sense. And the fighters that are not at the top level, look, not every men's fight is 12 rounds. We know that some of it gets started 4 rounds, you know, and work your way up. So it really depends on the level of the fighters. But I think going after the Association of Boxing Commissions, the various athletic commissions, BBBOC, and organizations like that could really start to make a change.
I got to tell you something about the ABC. They have a document that says somewhere, 10/2, and many of the state boxing commissions will state 10/2, but all of that is mutable. It's not a law. It's just it's not a law.
Right.
You can change it. And that is exactly what has been happening state by state. It happened in Florida. They said, sure, 12/3. It's happened in New York. It's happened in California. It's happened in Nevada and other states that have said, sure. You just come to them with the argument. Listen, state organizations approve every fight anyway. And if you come to them, you say, I got 2 elite fighters. They're very experienced. They've already had 10-round bouts. They're champions. They're going to go for it. There's nothing that says they won't. And I'll just give you a little PS. Women have fought 15-3, okay?
Damn. Back in the day.
Well, hello, back when fights were 15-3, women fought 15-3, okay? So it's just that's what a championship fight used to be, was 15-3. Then it became 12-3. Okay, so women have fought 15-3, they have fought 12-3. What they haven't done in this era is fought 12-3 by 3 sanctioning bodies. And WBC is not willing to do that. They're not willing to accept it at 12-3 right now. That's okay. The other 3 will do it. And as Amanda has said, hey, I'll take care of my mandatories for WBC at 10-2. I don't have a problem, but I'm doing the rest at 12-3.
Right. That's how you do it. When in 2000, I want to say it was 2010, maybe 2011, when I first got into the boxing business. And I had a small team of fighters that I looked out for. I was their fight manager, and we did all that thing. But I wrote a letter to the athletic commission because I didn't understand why women were fighting at 2-minute rounds. And the commissioner at the time is not the one that we have now, but he said it's up to the promoters to allow the women to fight at 3-minute rounds or not. And I was like, oh, okay. But those guys didn't want to have those women fight at 3-minute rounds. So,
and it's money.
And if the WBC doesn't approve, who among the fans are going to give a damn if it's an important fight?
Right. Exactly.
I mean, I think it's going to put pressure on WBC. We'll see what happens. We'll see what the success is of Amanda's fights. We'll see how many happen after that. We'll see how many fighters agree to the 12-3. And look, we've talked about this before, right? Elite is 3-3 in the amateurs. It's the same as the men. So when an amateur fighter goes to the pros, they got to step down from 3 minutes to 2. And it's problematic.
Right.
So.
Well, talking about the amateurs, Eddie, you sent us an article today that the IOC has made a decision, right, to put the boxing on hold for LA's Games 2028. Why don't you give us a breakdown of what's going on with that?
Yes, if we're going to see for that, it might be we're on the eve of destruction for Olympic boxing, as things have taken a major step backwards. If you remember when early this year, when the International Olympic Committee removed its recognition of the IBA, the International Boxing Association, as the Olympic Boxing Federation, there were assurances put out by top IOC officials boxing is guaranteed to be on the program for Los Angeles 2028, and they hadn't made the whole final decision then. What happened was there were several sports, 9 sports, actually. There were a lot of alterations to the Olympic program being made for LA, different from what you're going to see next year in Paris. And first of all, there were 9 new sports proposed that would just be for LA 2028, aiming at primarily an American audience. And 5 of them were accepted. Baseball, softball was brought back. Again, that's weird. Baseball for men, softball for women, but obviously those are big sports in the United States. Cricket, which to some people was surprised, and I think was a good decision because there's a growing Indian population. You're starting to see a professional cricket league developing slowly in the United States, and it'll also help with their TV revenue because, you're going to put India versus Pakistan, which in India was the largest event ever on streaming in India that they recently had. You're going to increase the TV revenue for the Olympics by having cricket on. Flag football, which a lot of people, we used to play touch football as a kid, and no tackling or helmets or any of that. It's football, but you have a little flag that you put on your side, and you grab the flag, and it's the equivalent of a tackle. And that's the partnership that the IOC is developing with the NFL, because they're not going to put NFL-style football in the Olympics, because outside of the United States and maybe Canada, which is its own version of it, there's very, very little interest in it. And most people, when they talk about football, they're talking about what Americans and a couple of other countries, I think, mistakenly called soccer. But so that's not coming in. they're putting in lacrosse, and that's sixes, I think only six aside, which is popular in North America, something I believe was originally developed by Native Americans and First Nations, mainly popular in the East and the Northeast. And they're bringing in squash, which is popular not so much in the US, but around the world. And it's been really trying to get in the Olympic program for several years. It's been on the verge of it, and a lot of people thought it would be on by now, but this is going to be on. And that's to take advantage of this growing interest in these racket sports. You have pickleball and paddle and all these different things. And so squash is the most organized. So those have been added just for LA. And what happens in 32 at Brisbane, Australia, we'll see what happens. There were 4 sports that were on the short list that were not accepted, and this is important for the combat sports. 2 of them were fighting sports. Breaking, which is what they call breakdancing, was not accepted, which makes sense because I don't see how that's really a sport. But, if you like it, fine, but it's form of dancing. Karate and kickboxing were both rejected. And a lot of that has to do with the influence of people from Taekwondo in the Olympic movement. A lot of money coming in from South Korea, and they've been trying to particularly karate's been trying to get on the Olympic program for a long time, and they're not even going to be in LA 2028. And motorsport was not put on for 2028, which I think would be kind of real complicated to bring to the Olympics. So that was a decision that was just officially ratified Monday. It was made a couple of days ago by the executive board and was rubber stamped by the whole IOC at their session in Mumbai. There were 3 sports that were listed before as problem sports. One of them was modern pentathlon, which is a version of the ancient pentathlon, which the ancient version I like better. They used to include wrestling, but they got rid of that, and that's supposed to be something that a 19th century cavalry officer would do, but they ran into problems with the horseback riding in it, particularly when one of the trainers punched a horse at the last Olympics, and there were all these reports of animal abuse, and it created a mess. And so they've changed one of the events from horseback riding to obstacle racing. So that has now been accepted and is back on the program as a full Olympic sport for LA 28 and beyond. Another one was weightlifting, and that was with all sorts of funny business with their elections and corruption by the previous president and widespread doping that saw many of the top weightlifting federations have numerous athletes suspended. Well, they've made up now with the International Weightlifting Federation, the IOC have made up. The International Testing Agency is going to do its anti-doping management. And so they're back on. And there was a third sport, boxing. Boxing, as we talked about, does not have an international federation recognized by the IOC. To get on the Olympics, you need a recognized international federation. And so waiting in the wings is world boxing. However, there are only a handful of federations, of national boxing federations, have joined world boxing. I think it's somewhere around a dozen. It's under 20. And the whole areas of the world, most of Africa and Asia, which have no representation. So the IOC had to decide, were they going to restore boxing to the Olympic program in LA 2028, but they still have no recognized federation. So their official statement is that the IOC has decided any decision regarding the inclusion of boxing on the LA 28 sports program is put on hold. So there was no discussion of this at by the IOC session. In other words, they're going to kick the can down the road, but they really can't wait much longer, because by 2025, they're going to come up with the real specifics. They just added all these other sports. In fact, the IOC executive board was supposed to meet about a month ago to approve the sports on the program, and they canceled that meeting because apparently there was a lot of backroom haggling going on. So they finalize it. Then they have to work out the venues, the schedule, all the practical stuff that you have to do to get this going so it runs smoothly, and presumably anyway in 2028. So boxing is running out of time. And this was made more difficult by what just happened with the Asian Boxing Federation, because they just had their Congress that took place, their extraordinary Congress is going on at the same time, and they had it in Thailand. A couple of months ago, shortly after the IOC kicked out the IBA, the Asian Boxing Federation indicated that they were done with the IBA and they were looking to join something else. And the president of the ASBC, Mr. Chunhaviria of Thailand, said in June, quote, "The Olympics represent a beacon of hope for the world, and we intend to put all of ASBC's extensive resources in full support of the Olympic movement." And they indicated they were going to join world boxing. Well, they didn't. Instead, at this extraordinary Congress they had a vote, and you could vote for one of two things. One was that the Asian Boxing Confederation would continue to stay with the IBA until a new international federation is recognized by the IOC. The second choice was that right away they'd leave the IBA and they'd continue without the IBA. Well, they took the vote of the delegates there, and it was overwhelming. 31 voted out of 35 to continue with the IBA until a new international federation is recognized. Only 3 voted to leave, and there was 1 abstention. And Kremlev, the head of the IBA, said he was really grateful to this, and perhaps more importantly than Kremlev saying this, that his gratitude for their loyalty to the IBA and unwavering unity, which was not, by the way, the vote. They didn't say they're going to stick with IBA under any circumstances. But in essence, that might be what it means at this point, because on Twitter, the Asian Boxing Confederation retweeted Kremlev's statement where he thanked them and really didn't explain what the 2 choices were on the vote. So they're leaning to staying with the IBA, probably because, it's a lot of Russian money flowing to these federations. And here's the catch-22. The IOC will only recognize world boxing as the Olympic Boxing Federation when it has many more members. Thomas Bach, the president of the IOC, pretty much directly indicated that in an interview that he did with the Indian media before this session of the IOC started. But now these Asian boxing federations said they won't join world boxing until IOC recognizes world boxing. So there's your catch-22. They won't recognize it until it has more members, but more members won't join it until the IOC recognizes it. So something has to break. And at this point, what's very possible, sort of reading the tea leaves and knowing a little bit of something, how the IOC, despite what they say, is not crazy about fighting sports and combat sports, it's very possible the IOC is going to say, look, we just dealt modern pentathlon clean itself up, weightlifting cleaned itself up, at least to the IOC's satisfaction. We added all these 5 other sports, and boxing is still out, the rogue sport. What do we need this shit for? What do we really need boxing for? It's just one headache after another. There are all these other sports that don't have all these scandals involved, that want to get on, that are dying to get on the Olympic program, and we're just taking all this shit, being attacked by the IBA. So right now it's unclear if boxing will even be on the Olympic program in LA 2028, even though Casey Wasserman, the big money guy that's head of LA 28, said they really want boxing. And obviously in the LA area, in California, boxing is a popular sport, at least has a decent sized fan base. At this point, it's not clear if it's going to be on the program. And I don't think too many people will miss it, which will be an absolute disaster down the road for professional boxing, because we know how many of the top boxers have come through the amateur program, and the amateur program gets its funding, be it by sponsors or governments done differently in different countries, because it's the Olympics. And without the Olympics, it's going to slink back to something without the big funding, without the big sponsors, to becoming one of the numerous minor non-Olympic sports that are out there in limbo, running their events in junior high schools in the middle of nowhere, and nobody watching this. So it's a real precarious situation for Olympic boxing at this time, because of the stupidity and corruption in so many of these national boxing federations that's out there. So we'll see what happens, but the clock is ticking. They lost this round, and by 2025 it's gonna be final. So we'll see what happens, but there's gonna have to be some real change soon. And a lot of people are astonished that there hadn't been a stampede of national boxing federations to join world boxing, but it hasn't happened. So that's the state of these amateur boxing groups are just killing themselves with their short-sightedness, at least the leadership. That's where we're at today. It ain't good.
Yeah, if the World Boxing Organization doesn't get recognized by 2025, what's going to happen to all the athletes that are in the pipeline right now? I mean, do they just turn, I guess they just turn pro early, right? For those that want to continue on in the career of boxing.
I mean, for women, it's particularly precarious because they finally get equity with Team USA, USA Boxing, as national champions. They live in Colorado at the Olympic Center. They train there. They do all sorts of international competitions through there. They have coaching. They have everything they need, and they're paid equitably, same as the men. They get bonuses the same as the men when they win gold. It's going to be devastating. It will be absolutely devastating, particularly for women who have no other opportunities. It's not like, they're going to turn pro and get picked up by a promoter and make a living. They don't make a living. They make a living.
It's a side hustle.
Amateurs.
Yeah, it's a side hustle.
And side hustling. I mean, we've had Heather Hardy on the show. We know her story. She had her only real payday at the age of 41, thanks to Amanda.
That's crazy.
Right. So let's get real here. For women, it's not, there's nothing out there. So it's really, really hard. And the amateur program in the United States is at the national level, look, it has its issues. Every program does. But the women are well treated. They have real opportunities. They get opportunities in the Army and in the armed forces as athletes. They're respected as boxers. They participate in amateur programs, both in the armed forces and as part of Team USA events. So it's really going to rejigger things in a very, very negative way if this comes to pass. And as Eddie says, nobody's jumping on the bandwagon. The World Boxing Association or organization, whatever, World Boxing is not meeting the moment in terms of what they need to do to really publicize themselves, show what that differentiation is, and find money to replace the loss for these smaller programs that are dependent on Russian gold or wherever they're finding the funds. I mean, that's the source of this. So they have to find funding. And that's a kind of another double-edged sword because it breeds corruption,
right?
As we have seen,
exactly.
Right? So there has to be some kind of happy medium. And whereas, a program like the United States or Team GB might have funding, or in Germany they may have funding, in France they may have funding, but these smaller, organizations across Africa, across Asia, South America may not. And they have voted in lockstep with IBA precisely because they get little bits of gold dust.
Right.
Not real gold dust. But it gives them the illusion of something. And that
meaning the leaders, meaning the leaders of those federations get
exactly.
couple of
they
rubles
get their money
here and there.
They're getting their rubles and they're doing the cheating, right? I mean, that's the whole basis of all these cheating scandals that have been. They're getting money funneled and then they get the win. And that's how they stay in, So with that out of the picture, you got to rejigger it. But you still need to fund these programs because these are countries that cannot necessarily afford them. And they need some international way of floating funding to be able to provide the kinds of training and athletic buildings and all the apparatus of training,
right,
to provide world-class opportunities for these fighters to compete, and then to have opportunities to compete, and then opportunities to potentially jump into professional boxing once they're done with their amateur careers, or earn a living as amateurs until they age out and they decide to do something else with their lives. And it's really problematic. And as I said, for women, it'll be completely devastating.
So what happens?
Here's the other side. Here's the other side of what might happen, because as we know, there's the IBA, since they've been kicked out of the Olympic movement, has been less and less transparent about where their money's coming from. Yet they're having all this money thrown around. They're saying Gazprom, the Russian energy big company, is no longer a sponsor. But where's all this money coming from? They're not doing pay-per-views or TV revenue or ticket sales or merchandise or anything. So where's all this money coming from? Well, we can take a guess. Now, the IBA, if they want to be sort of the foundation of Putin's various competition to the Olympics, the so-called friendship games, which they want to organize with the pro-terrorist countries, that are part of their bloc. If too many of these federations commit too closely to these so-called games, which are in competition to the Olympics, countries like China, Saudi Arabia, and others, those countries want to host more and more Olympic events, and have already done so. The IOC could tell them, fine, you want to host Olympic events? Why the hell are you so close with our competition? We're not going to select you so long as you're really close to these games that are led by Russia. So there's some leverage in the backroom politics that still might play out. But how that's going to help boxing is also unclear. So right now it's a standoff, and it's a bad situation that the Asian Boxing Confederation has gone backwards, and the IOC's promise that boxing will be guaranteed on the LA 28 has not been kept. Things are going backwards, but it's typical of what we're seeing in boxing. The whole thing on a professional level is declining all over the place, and you have all this infighting and this stupid factionalism, and that's where we're at. It's self-destruction. We're on the eve of self-destruction should be the song,
and
which I will not sing.
Don't sing any. And as the Olympics may be going away, you've got NBC and Boxer from Great Britain coming together to bring U.S. boxing fans fights. So tell us a little bit about that, Eddie.
Well, this is something I'm surprised didn't take place a long time ago, because when the current version of Boxer was formed, and when they got the deal with Sky Sports, which a while ago, I could look up the date. Sky Sports is part of Comcast, which is the parent company of NBC Universal. So it amazed me that when boxers started their program on Sky Sports in the UK, that they weren't getting their fights on NBC or NBC's streaming service, Peacock in the United States. It was going to ESPN Plus, which was part of Disney, competitor to NBC and Comcast.
And even then, just parenthetically, very few of their fights were even going on that. They've been doing things on Fight TV streaming.
Yeah, with this small pay-per-view outlet.
Yeah.
So now
absolutely.
For whatever, I don't know the backstory, maybe that will come out, but this kind of came out of the blue. All the streaming services, I think, except Netflix in the United States, are heavily bleeding money. And they've been cutting programming left and right, laying off people, and at the same time jacking up their prices, virtually every single one of them. So they haven't been adding much new programming, but Peacock, which by the way is the comedian and writer Seth MacFarlane, I saw an interview with him and Jimmy Fallon, and he said that when they came up with the name Peacock, there were no comedians in the room. But anyway, right. That's the name of the streaming service. And they have the rights to the Olympics. And I think next year in the US, if you want to see all of the Olympics, you're going to need to have Peacock. And what they want to do is bolster up their sports. They just signed for some college basketball, and they have all these other sports on there. Now they're going to have these boxing events on there, which I don't know how big that will be, but they're bolstering up this sports sector. How long till they think it's going to be profitable soon, that remains to be seen. But this is where they're going. I don't think we're going to see too much on NBC, because remember a while ago they closed down NBC Sports Network. They also closed down the Olympic Channel, which another bad move by Bach and his team to set up a TV channel. Because look, if you follow a sport, if you want to watch the Olympic Channel, how many people want to watch old videos of Olympic figure skating? Not a lot. And then after you watch that for a little while, the next show on is Olympic boxing, a repeat of something. How many people who watch Olympic boxing also watch Olympic figure skating, and vice versa? It's kind of a
me.
Yeah, we got one.
Guilty of that.
They had one.
No, two.
Did you ever watch it on
skating.
Did you ever watch it on the Olympic Channel?
I never knew there was an Olympic Channel.
That's what I mean.
Watch it on YouTube.
No, on TV. I watch it on TV.
Cousins.
But the point is that the ratings were around the number 2 total viewers. So they ditched it. Now it's free to watch it. online through their website.
Yeah, no, I watch it because I did while I was writing my book. Uh, I had to go online and watch some fights, rewatch fights from 2012 and 2016 for women's boxing. The thing that excites me about Boxer coming onto to Peacock as a streaming service is the fact that Boxer has a lot of great women boxers. And it's just another opportunity to women to actually be seen in the United States. A fighter like Natasha Jonas, you couldn't see her in the US unless you bought Fight TV on a streaming one-time kind of thing and hope that you could find it, or some bizarre thing through YouTube. So I think it's really an exciting opportunity to bring more boxing. And Comcast also is, or NBC, has had forays into boxing. Even in COVID year, they were doing a boxing show through their NBC Sports at the time.
A lot of it was time buys.
Well, whatever it was, they were showing bouts during COVID, and there were women who were on those fight cards, sometimes even the main event, because people would get COVID and drop out. So there were some interesting fights. Actually, Erica Cruz defeated Jelena Nedeljkovic. Sorry, I've completely destroyed her name, but she actually won her title twice on NBC. Or I'm sorry, the first time was on NBC, and then went ahead and fought Amanda Serrano 2 years later. But so they have been in boxing in the past. They were doing PBC for a while. In fact, when Heather Hardy and Shalito Vincent were the first PBC card to ever have women streamed, it was actually on NBC Sports Boxing. Wow. So I find it intriguing that they're jumping back into boxing. And I think making a deal with Boxer gives them access to some really good fights. And for women in particular, the opportunity for yet another platform, which are zero in the US. I mean, the only place you see women boxing really is the Zone. Right. On Golden Boy cards and on the Matchroom cards from overseas. And then you see, if Michaela Mayer is fighting on ESPN, you see her. That's it. So this is a really big step, I think, to have an outlet for that.
It's a step. I wouldn't call it a big step because it's unclear what they're paying for this or how much they're paying for this. Remember that right now these are just going to be cards from the UK, so they don't have to pay for production or anything like that. They could just get the feed from Boxer and just show it on Peacock until they expand and see what the numbers are. You got to remember, it's been a long time since NBC actually paid rights fees to put boxing on. When PBC started in 2015, the kickoff press conference was at the famous Saturday Night Live studios in New York, and all these NBC suits were walking around, and brought all these different people in. That was a time buy. PBC was paying them to get on NBC, and some years earlier, there were attempts, maybe about 15 years earlier, with Budweiser Boxing, where they had to deal with main events. The more recent ones with NBC Sports, I'm not sure how that worked, but there wasn't a whole lot of money behind those. And again, those were done when they closed down NBC Sports. So you'd have to go back pretty far before they really financed a big boxing program.
I agree with you.
NBC.
They're not financing it, but the point is, at least there's content, because you cannot find content.
I couldn't find a fight this weekend.
There were none. I mean, unless you were online on the Zone, that's the only place you saw boxing from UK, and they had fights from Mexico.
There was a Showtime card and an ESPN card. The Showtime card with the Tim Tszyu fight from Australia, and the ESPN card with the Janibek fight was the main event.
But the point is, for Boxer, is it gets them in the U.S. market in a way that they're not now, because they only have the occasional fight that ends up on ESPN. And that also is just a pass through. It's just a video feed. They may or may not even have American announcers on ESPN on those shows. Usually they're just the UK feed, the UK announcers, and they're picking it up from Sky Sports. So, well, I agree with you. We have to see what happens. But from my lens of women's boxing, I am jumping up and down because I'm saying, thank God we get to actually see some decent women fighting on cards like Caroline Dubois. She's a sensational fighter, but you can't see her, right? Not available on ESPN. You got to find Fight TV and hope you can get the stream. And nobody knows how to find that. So I'm excited because they have a really good stable of boxers at different levels. And from a women's boxing perspective, it's an opportunity to actually see some excellent, exquisite talent fight.
Excellent.
But there will be some, I just want to get this in quickly, an event that will include boxing that virtually nobody is talking about, at least outside Saudi Arabia, that's taking place, the World Boxing Games, the World Combat Games. I'm even messing up the name, although I just wrote 2 articles about it. The World Combat Games taking place October 20th to October 30th in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. And the boxing will take place. It's one of 16 Olympic and non-Olympic combat sports and martial arts, which include Aikido, arm wrestling, boxing, fencing, judo, jiu-jitsu, karate, kendo, kickboxing, Muay Thai, Sambo, Savate, Sumo, Taekwondo, wrestling, and Wushu. And this is going to have over 1,650 athletes. This is an amateur event. And it's interesting numbers: 144 fencers, 136 from jiu-jitsu, 100 from Aikido, 96 arm wrestlers, 96 from karate, 96 kickboxers, 92 from Savate, 88 from Sambo, 88 from Taekwondo, 88 from Muay Thai, 84 from Judo, 80 from Sumo, those are the biggest ones, 80 from Wushu, 69 Kendo, and just 32 boxers. And the biggest representation, 288 wrestlers. And of these, there will be 900 male athletes and 700 female athletes. And the preliminary schedule is out. And the boxing will take place on the first 2 days of the event, October 20th and 21st. And if you look on their social media, or I just did an article about it, you could see the TV listings and the streaming listings, depending on what country you're in. In the United States, it's going to be on the Olympic channel. So you have to go to their website for that and look all that stuff up. And all this information came out very, very late, and the press release and all the TV listings and so forth. But it is taking place, the World Combat Games, and I really like this event. But it's Saudi Arabia again playing a big role, not only in sports, but becoming a world home for the combat sports and martial arts, because nobody wanted this event, and it had been in limbo for 10 years until starting next week. So we'll see. Try to watch some of that. I encourage people to do it.
Just a quick question: is this under IBO or World Boxing? IBA or World Boxing?
Well, it's not under World Boxing. It's unclear.
So it's IBA.
Well, they haven't. There are a tremendous amount of details they haven't listed on this. Now, Saudi Arabia Boxing Federation is still part of IBA. So it might be by the Saudi Arabian Boxing Federation, or it might be by IBA. It's not entirely clear. Also, the event is sponsored overall by Sport Accord, which is part of the Olympic movement. So what their relationship is to the suspended IBA, it's unclear at this point. And, this is not virtually no publicity for this. Yeah, I've had to dig and dig and dig to find the information on this, and I haven't been able to find this one at this point. So we'll see who is behind this.
Yeah, interesting.
Very interesting. I'm not going to watch it because it's in Saudi Arabia. I'm just letting you know that now. All right. So
Well,
it looks like you guys got anything else you want to cover before we say goodbye to our fans?
I'm good. I'm good.
All right. Look, we have to brag about you, Melissa, because you wrote a 90,000 word book that did not need editing. And I want to give it up to you, girl. Give it up to you.
Yeah, it's a bravo to your editor too for being sensible.
That's right. Bravo to you. So
thank you.
Melissa,
no, it's good. It's called The Promise of Women's Boxing. It's going into production. It'll be out sometime in the spring of 2024. I don't have dates or anything like that yet. I'll believe me, I'll be promoting like crazy. But it's done. It's said, and it's going to start production. I'm just so excited and honored that I had this opportunity to write about women in the sport over the last 10 years and try to tease out some of the stories of the fighters and the kinds of things that they've achieved and the challenges that they have faced and continue to face in the sport. So I thank you so much.
Incredible.
And I'm just excited and really happy that I'll be able to contribute this into the literatures of boxing, but more to the point, I'm just hoping that I have been able to do justice to the stories of these remarkable athletes.
Congratulations, sis. That's amazing.
Thank you.
All right. Tell everybody where they can find you and where they can buy your current book.
Right. I'm I'm at Girl Boxing Now on Twitter and Instagram and Threads, trying to write more on Threads with more on women's boxing. I have a website, girlboxing.org, and my first book, A History of Women's Boxing, you can get on Amazon, or if you're on my website, click on the page and it'll get you a direct link to Amazon.
That's a fascinating read. Fascinating read. Okay, Eddie, it's all on you, brother. Tell the people where they can find you.
I will be singing on Broadway in the Eddie Goldman No Holds Barred review, which will be taking place on Broadway in an abandoned parking lot somewhere. Now you could find me. I'm still on Twitter because that's where the most discussion, not only about combat sports, but politics and all sorts of other things takes place. The journalists, the academics, a lot of the political people are on there, and I haven't found that kind of discussion or access to information replicated on any of these other places. And just today it was announced that the Biden-Harris 2024 campaign has joined Trump's so-called Truth Social, and they're gonna troll them right there with all the nonsense that they have. We'll see how that works out.
Dark Brandon has arrived.
That's it. And it's funny. It just makes fools of them once more. And I'm on Twitter. The handle I use everywhere is at NHB News. And I'm still doing my Patreon page, patreon.com/Eddie Goldman. Subscribe to that to support independent journalism. You're not getting this really anywhere. You're getting a lot of propaganda and just people rubber stamping what promoters and networks say, which is why I'm off of my own doing this writing. That you won't see the existing boxing websites really don't have any independence or courage to present anything that is not just essentially rewriting press releases and just giving results and things like that. So that's where I'm at on the website, eddiegoldman.com.
Right on. Thank you, Eddie. Thank you, Melissa. And that is all for today, folks. I am your fight goddess. You can find me on Shitter still. I'm still there at Angry Afro Radio because I am that angry Afro woman. I don't have much hair anymore. But on Instagram, you can find me at Fight Goddess 1, on Threads at Fight Goddess 1. You guys check out our YouTube page. Go to warsports.com. You can catch all our content there. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. And until the next time, peace, love, and push-ups.